Jay Gabler, Duluth News Tribune arts and entertainment reporter, here with another special episode of the DNT Minute featuring my column, Front Row Seat. This week, I try aerial silks right here in Duluth. In fairness to me, a drop isn't typically part of the Day 1 Silks curriculum at Northern Lights Aerial Studio. Also, the move is called a drop, and I certainly did drop. That was a good effort, said Alexa Waveren, who'd stepped in to help spot me as I attempted a forward flip after winding myself into the air. Instead of doing a 360, I managed a 180 and ended up in a shoulder stand. While I don't expect Cirque Italia to come calling for my acrobatic services next time they pitch a tent at Miller Hill Mall, I was impressed that I could even conceivably have executed a drop after a mere 1 hour of instruction at Aerial Silks. After all, the first time I played golf, no one suggested I cut a dog leg or try the championship tee. Northern Lights Aerial Studio opened last year in a bright space on the 5th floor of the Wieland Block building at 26 East Superior Street. I can only imagine what my predecessors a century ago, when the building was home to the News Tribune, would have made of the scene. It's just the open trusses because we wanted to have as high ceilings as possible, business manager Anna Beam Mitchell told me during a phone interview. We really love the big windows and how much light can come in, and we're right in downtown Duluth, so it's a nice centralized location for people. I'd been curious about the studio since seeing videos on social media. Many aerial studios look like windowless gyms, which makes perfect sense, but with the Duluth studio's expansive views, it seems like you're truly in the air. This first year of our studio being open blew all my goals out of the water, said Beam Mitchell, one of 4 co-owners. We've been very successful this year, so I am thrilled with the trajectory of the studio right now. The space was bustling when I arrived July 16th for a Level 1 class in silks. With Charlie XCX bumping on the sound system, a staffer checked me in and I deposited my shoes in a waiting room cubby. The hour-long class began promptly at 5:30 p.m. I was one of 4 students and one of 2 men in the class. All of us were first-timers at the studio. Instructor Jenny Smith led us through a few yoga-like stretches before inviting us to step onto the crash mats and get familiar with the silks. Aerial silks is one of several types of practice available at the studio. While I was learning how to accomplish a footlock in the hanging fabric, another group of people was working on pole dancing behind a translucent divider. You're getting a really good workout, Beam Mitchell explained, describing what the studio's disciplines have in common. It's a lot of strength training, but you're not in a gym, you're not lifting weights, you're not on a treadmill. It's an alternative form of fitness, and it's really focused on building body awareness and building body confidence. Having never attempted aerial silks before, I was surprised at how the essences of the practice, strength, balance, control, maybe a little showmanship, became immediately apparent. Once my fellow students and I had learned how to securely wrap a foot in silk, we practiced lifting ourselves off the ground and maneuvering around the taut fabric. The aerial part of the name is no joke. Although we were initially just lifting ourselves a short hop above the mats, we had to trust the setup. As a guy who's over 6 feet tall and comes from a family that doesn't trust wicker or molded plastic, I found myself instinctively flinching at the idea of putting my full weight on the hanging silks. My conscious mind, though, knew I was in good hands, and I lifted off, pulling myself upward and practicing the postures that Smith demonstrated. No wonder the aerial arts have been a hit in Duluth, I thought, if one of the first things you do is get into an arrowhead shape. I'd seen aerial silk demonstrations before, and though I knew I was watching performers who were well practiced, they always made the climbing part seem effortless. It is not. Although you may be flying on the silks, you're not a superhero. The only way to lift your body is to use your own muscles. As Smith noted, the basic lock puts a tight squeeze around the center of the foot. That's something experienced flyers get used to, but I quickly learned that the best way to alleviate any discomfort was to put my arms to work supporting their share of my weight. When it comes to upper body strength training, the prospect of flipping around in a sling is a lot more motivating than, say, the jungle gyms I faced as a kid. In grade school at Holy Rosary, my friend and I would sit on top of the monkey bars instead of swinging under them, styling ourselves the Statler and Waldorf of Duluth as we cracked jokes about the other kids' playground games. With a little help from Smith, inside the hour I was supporting myself in a pose that photographer Clint Austin said reminded him of Michael Keaton in Batman. That was surprising to hear, since I'd always thought of myself as more of a Michael Keaton in Spotlight, or maybe in Mr. Mom. The biggest commonality we have, said Beam Mitchell about Northern Lights students, is that everybody's looking for that kind of community where you can go and you can have a little workout, you can get some fitness in your day, and you can hang out with people who have similar interests to you. That doesn't necessarily mean an interest in performing, but it's really fun to put something together and show it off to people, said Beam Mitchell. So anyone that wants to perform, we work really hard with them to get them comfortable and confident to do it. There are studio showcases, but it's not required, she said, by any means. Smith told me she reverted to being a couch potato after college, and aerial work helped her become active again. One of my classmates told me she'd taken aerial classes in her former home on the East Coast, and after moving to Duluth was interested to see that there's now a space to take flight here. Northern Lights Aerial Studio is celebrating its first anniversary with an open house August 17th. A student showcase, Moonlit Menagerie, will take place at the St. Louis County Depot's Studio 4 on October 12th. I want to get more people in, I want to get more people interested, said Beam Mitchell. I want us to have another really big blowout showcase this time next year. The impromptu drop lesson at the end of class, I later learned, came about after Clint suggested one of the instructors try a drop for the camera, and the staff decided to extend the opportunity to each student in my class. It may be a while before I try a drop again, but I have been thinking about joining a Duluth gym, and I'm now aware of a fun new option. By the end of my first hour, I'd worked up a healthy sweat and was proud of my progress. I headed home to tell my spouse, who was surprised to hear I'd been channeling a caped crusader. You said you were doing silks, she recalled. I assumed it was a craft project. That's this week's column. I will be back next week to tell about my experiences at a day-long sauna seminar. Until then, I'm Jay Gabler, Duluth News Tribune.